This video is made possible by people like you. Thank you for supporting me throughout the year. Did you know that this video is probably more controversial than last week's? Yeah, you'd think that me actively criticizing video games for being terrible would ruffle some feathers, but actually, it's putting one game above another that sets people off. I don't really care, I've been doing this for far too long for that, but I would like to say that 2022 has been a pretty awesome year for good video games of basically every genre around. There's plenty that couldn't make it here tonight and have fallen just outside the 10 that I've picked, but if you're one of the sad few who bemoan the lack of quality in the games industry these days, you just gotta open your eyes a bit and stop playing Warzone 24/7. There are other games out there and some of them have made me feel very happy this year. At least until I read the comment section and end up feeling bad about it. Oh well, it wouldn't be Christmas without a little dose of disappointment. My year is consistently made better by indie games. That goes for every year basically, since the usual AAA affairs are so reluctant to take risks since they have countless shareholders to please, and instead you're more likely to find major releases adopting each other's trends so that they're more likely to make money. And so indie games are wonderful for showing me stuff that I wouldn't expect to see, and Neon White came storming into the picture as a first-person shooter slash platformer hybrid that rustled my jimmies in just the best way. It's a surprisingly barren combo of genres, with only really Doom Eternal standing out in recent years as a fast-paced shooter with incredible mobility. So I suppose if Doom Eternal was all about hell, then Neon White with its blinding vistas and pearly white structures is all about heaven. Certainly plays like it. I'm surprised how much Neon White doesn't rest on its laurels, because you'd think it'd be happy to just be this FPS game with more jumping in it. But there's also a card-based resource system where you can activate special abilities by using the cards that you pick up during the level, and it probably doesn't need to do this, but I like it. It's something new and different. The same can be said for the soundtrack that bops away in the background and provides the perfect background noise for what is often some very high-octane gameplay. Seriously, go from playing Modern Warfare 2 to Neon White and you can feel every fibre of the difference. These games are out there if you're willing to look. If you needed a reminder that this video is effectively all about my favourite games of the year and not just a list of Metacritic's highest rated games of 2022, the next game only sits at an 80 and an even worse user score. In fact, there's only 4 critic reviews and they all gave it an 80, so at least you can say that Trombone Champ is consistent. Probably not the endearing quality that you'd take away from it after playing it, but it's good to know that this game can be all things to all people. If you somehow missed this one this year, Trombone Champ is a rhythm music game like Guitar Hero, but guitars are expensive, so you're instead stuck with a trombone, and the cool thing about trombones is that they're fretless, or in other words, they use a metal slide rather than valves to change notes. Which just means that you couldn't design a game around pressing buttons to play notes and have it be an authentic tromboning experience. Trombone Champ uses your mouse as the slide, and while this makes it a less precise experience than, say, Guitar Hero, until you get good at them, trombones can be a less precise instrument to play than a trumpet, for example. I saw some people criticize this game for being a little hard to control without understanding that the closer you get to the genuine experience, the harder it will be to play the fucking instrument. This only adds to the hilarity of trying to play a complicated song, and since Trombone Champ has a very active modding community, you can throw yourself through the fire and flames and see what kind of husk of a man falls out on the other side. I don't think I've laughed harder at a game this year, and the competition has been fierce. I love video games, man, I really do. Hey, do you want another indie game? I don't know what's happening, they're just kind of coming out of everywhere. I can't stop it, send help! It's almost like this was quite a good year for indie games or something, and while I can't follow up with a game that is funnier than Trombone Champ, Stray arguably has a more intriguing, unique premise. I really can't say that I've played too many games in the past, or likely the future, where I'm in control of a cat. Stray was one of those games that I didn't hear much about before it came out, and even on release day, not a ton of people were talking about it, but momentum ramped up quickly, and suddenly the internet was once again pouring all of their love and attention into something cat-related. We're a simple people, aren't we? Annapurna, the publishers behind Stray, were also responsible for publishing Neon White, so it's safe to say they had a pretty solid 2022. Stray is a very simple game where you explore and jump around a fairly linear city environment, and its two main qualities are the world you're exploring and the authenticity and charm given towards, cat gaming. It doesn't ask too much of you, much like you wouldn't expect a random stray cat to save the world, but it presents you with obstacles to climb with your feline agility and a world that isn't too massive, but from the POV of a cat, it sprawls out in front of you. There's some light non-verbal storytelling and some futuristic qualities, but it's not front and center, because frankly, your average cat just doesn't care. It is a tad short though, and fortunately it's not full price, but that just makes me want more of it. Give me a Stray franchise, we could do so much worse. At the start of this year, I didn't anticipate one of my favourite games of 2022 being something that I first heard about from an advert during a YouTube video. You know, there's a lot of crap out there and roughly 500 million games that are pretending to be this peg game thing, and so I didn't really give Marvel Snap much attention at first. The tipping point was a friend of mine telling me that the game was really fun and not full of the usual mobile game pitfalls, and hey, I like some Marvel from time to time, why not give it a go? Yeah, so it turns out that Marvel Snap is kind of amazing. It's the Marvel gaming revolution now that the films kind of make themselves, and in a year that also brought us Midnight Suns, it's a good place to be right now. For a card game where each individual match takes about 5 minutes, it's crazy how much is crammed into that short space of time, with so many decisions and tactical choices that need to be made so that your opponent doesn't overwhelm you. Sometimes it can feel a bit random, but again, the matches are short, so if you feel hard done by, load up another one and get straight back to it. Deciding how to allocate your deck among the 3 zones on the field has a shocking amount of complexity to it, and it means that the skill ceiling on this licensed mobile game is surprisingly high. Also, mad bonus points for Marvel Snap being a mobile game in 2022 that isn't disgustingly pay to win. Frankly, I never thought I'd see the day. If Marvel Snap is a game that I can pick up for a few minutes at a time when I get bored, my go-to for slightly longer distractions has been Splatoon 3. Strange to talk about this game because saying that it feels a lot like the Splatoon games that preceded it probably sounds like a criticism, but everything that Nintendo have done with a third game has been in service of wringing out every tiny drop of quality from their unique shooter franchise. Like, clearly not a ton has changed, but some new movement options have raised the ceiling of the PvP, and Salmon Run being available all the time is honestly half the reason why some of my videos have been late this year. Nintendo haven't come in with a sledgehammer and made a ton of sweeping changes to Splatoon's fundamentals, but all these small changes really do add up to create possibly the best Splatoon game ever made. We may have to wait until this game inevitably gets some kind of DLC, since Octo Expansion elevated Splatoon 2 by quite a lot, but this is a very good start and, I suppose, continuation for this franchise. Patch out Flyfish ASAP though. They can all fucking die in a hole for all I care. One of the scariest moments when playing Subnautica is when you first start piloting the Cyclops submarine. The fear is several-fold, since it's an expensive ship to craft and I don't want to go grinding for resources again. Plus, you'll usually require the Cyclops to explore deeper parts of the ocean, which will usually come with the added risk of Leviathan attacks. But the big one for me was not quite being able to see what was out there. This on its own has a few different layers, since I didn't want to break my sub on some rocks, but even when using the different cameras, the Cyclops restricts your view of the outside world, and that is pretty scary. This legacy was retained and improved upon exponentially by Iron Lung, an incredibly simple indie game made by David Szymanski where you're in charge of a rusty submarine and tasked with documenting interesting points in this ocean of blood on this alien moon. It's a little out there with its premise, but it helps with the fear of the unknown and what could possibly be out there. Would anything be able to survive in an ocean of blood? Probably not, but what the fuck is this then? The tension in Iron Lung is so high that it gave me altitude sickness. The entire game takes place inside the submarine, and all you've got to help you understand where you are in the world is this very basic map, some coordinates, and oh yeah, the camera that takes a picture automatically when you reach a point of interest. What follows with that complete lack of help is a masterclass in suspense and sound design, because when you have so few points of reference, your imagination tends to fill in the blanks for you, and it is not so kind to your nerves. Every creak and shudder of the ocean, every strange alien noise in the distance, every picture you take that reveals more and more strange objects in an otherwise barren ocean, it's so incredibly good at provoking that intense fear of the unknown. Atmospherically, it's off the charts, and given that your only involvement in this game is clumsily piloting a submarine, there are few games out there that make you feel this defenseless. My fear of deep water has not been helped by video games. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are really promising. I've plugged in a few dozen hours into Violet, and Pokemon is heading in an exciting direction full of expansive exploration and the kind of openness and freedom of choice that should have been here from the start. Sure, there's a handful of very notable teething problems, and if Game Freak can get better at managing projects, that would be wonderful, but I have no complaints with the overall feel of Generation 9. That being said, it wasn't one of the best games I played in 2022, and in fact, it wasn't even the best Pokemon game I played this year. It's been out since January, and yet I still haven't forgotten what an uplifting breath of fresh air Pokemon Legends Arceus was. I remember reacting to that first trailer and thinking that this is where mainline Pokemon should go, and it's kind of funny that the only major issue I have with Legends Arceus is that it's not truly open world. If anything, playing Scarlet and Violet has helped me to appreciate Legends Arceus all the more, since I miss how aggressive wild Pokemon can be and how sometimes it necessitates a bit of stealth, and the fact that you can catch something without even needing to battle. It's all so good. I need more historical Pokemon games that challenge series conventions. That can only be a good thing, surely. It's been a good year for Nintendo, nothing too spectacular, but most of their major releases have done well for them, and the Switch continues to flesh out its library of games up to nearly 4,500? Hey, do you remember when the Switch didn't have any games? My favourite game for the Switch this year is almost certainly Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which I've had a tad different experience of when compared with something like Splatoon 3, since you can generally pick that game up in 10-minute bursts and get a good sense of what's so great about it. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 does require a bit more time investment, but that time is very well spent on yet another Monolith soft RPG that hits it so far out of the park that it's troubling the atmosphere on Jupiter. Seriously, Xenoblade is rapidly becoming one of the all-time great trilogies of games, and I'd go so far as to say that the third game is knocking on the door of being the best of the bunch. Not sure, I do love the first game a lot, but you can feel the progression with each new game, and it leaves Xenoblade Chronicles 3 feeling very nicely refined. You have the freedom of older RPGs thrown into a beautifully realised world with wide open expanses to run around in, and you feel all the knowledge gained from previous Xenoblade Chronicles come to a head in the third one. Interlinking is a very fun mechanic that is new to this game, and since it makes you significantly stronger, it means that XC3 is generally a bit more challenging than you'd expect. There's a lot to do, and if you get into it, this will easily set you back more than 100 hours with all those side quests to sink your teeth into, but more so with this game than previous ones, it feels less like I'm just doing all this side content to check off boxes in my brain. It's actually fun stuff to do for the most part. You've made an incredibly long RPG really fun virtually from start to finish. And also a soundtrack that is A, amazing, but also B, nearly 12 hours long. That kind of overachievement is exactly what we're looking for this year. Do you ever get the sense that Santa Monica are quite good at making video games? I think it speaks to their reputation that no one was worried about God of War Ragnarok. I'm sure higher-ups were concerned when it was delayed until 2022, and then again when there were rumours floating around that it would have to be pushed back until next year, but thankfully we've had it since November, and that has been a good time in my life. I think Ragnarok is a better game than the 2018 reboot, if just because this game is more comfortable with the Norse setting, and now the foundations are in place, it can be a bit more experimental with the set pieces. Thor is used so well as both a boss fight and as a way of sitting Kratos down to some tasty mead, and it sets up this fascinating dynamic between two parallels, and the fights between the two are some of my all-time favourite moments from this franchise. In general, Ragnarok has made some choice improvements to the gameplay, and the combat especially feels even more brutal than before. My one complaint, and it is a tiny petty one, is that we're now likely finished with the Norse stuff, and considering the two games that have taken place in that time period have been genuinely some of the best action games ever made, I kinda want more. Or is Kratos gonna diddle on some Egyptian gods next? Actually, nah, that sounds cool, let's do that. Yeah, okay, so there's no great plot twist at the end of the year or anything, because Elden Ring is kind of comfortably my game of the year, and I think I put that down to what it gave me as an experience. You know, God of War Ragnarok is still an incredible game, but I haven't done open world Dark Souls before, whereas fancy God of War, we did that back in 2018. It's kind of remarkable how much changes with the simple widening of the playing field, and you do end up approaching most of the challenges in the game with the knowledge that you likely don't have to fight this boss right now. Yeah, sure, if you're like me, your ego won't let you submit to countless deaths without some kind of victory, but to the more frustrated players, it helps give them more than one route through the game. And yet, despite this, the core essence of a Soulsborne game is never diluted. You're still getting your arse handed to you on a silver platter with egg fried rice on the side, and you still throw yourself again and again at massive bosses against impossible odds, and the satisfaction of finally breaking through is still as potent as ever. The only real change is how it's all presented, and if Soulsborne games gave you a sense of awe and wonderment whenever a boss introduced itself, Elden Ring only serves to accentuate this feeling with a world that does the same. It's one of the best open worlds ever created, crafted with a great respect for the player's time and dedication to exploring every inch, but with the added bonus of no level scaling, so great expedition to the farthest corners comes with the caveat that you're about to have your shit pushed in. It's an extraordinary feat, and one that underlines From Software as one of the most consistent developers making games today. Long may they continue. And yeah, those are my picks for the best games of the year. Do you agree, or did you play a game this year that deserved to be here instead? Let me know in a comment down below, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more in the future, and hit that bell for notifications of new uploads. If you need something else to watch right now, I made a video about the worst games of this year, and I also want to thank my top supporters on Patreon, including Ryan Down, Blue Catarade, and Devon Hutt. Thank you for watching, and have a very Merry Christmas.